Hello there, and welcome to the Unleash Your Greatness Within podcast. I'm TJ Hoisington, and I have a message for you today around the concept of capitalism. Yes, the free enterprise system. And I know that probably sounds a little different than some of the podcast episodes I've done in the past, but I think it's timely today. And you know what? I actually have a speech that I gave in a competition in high school where I spoke on the free enterprise system and the entrepreneur. And I recently found that speech that I gave at that competition. And I want to read that speech to you here on this podcast episode. So let's jump right into it.
You already know.
My passion and my mission to help you unleash your greatness within. My heart goes out to the underdogs that's on their way. If you think you can go from good to great, okay, let's motivate. GreatnessWithin.com. TJ Hoisington. GreatnessWithin.com.
All right. I love capitalism. Here's one thing you got to understand about me. I've been a business owner for over 25 years. I have strived to take advantage of the free enterprise system, the capitalistic system. And so I just have some thoughts I want to share with you because there's a war going on right now. You're hearing more now than ever about socialism. And there's a war going on of trying to shift the country's economic system to more socialism, as though that is going to create a more abundant future for everybody. And I would argue that research does not show that that is true. There is beauty when the capitalistic system, the free enterprise system, is running properly, the way that it is intended. That's not to say that there aren't bad apples, and that's not to say that there's not problems every once in a while, but by and large, the United States of America's economic system is built on small businesses. The revenue that comes in is because of the businesses that are in America. And I gotta tell you, did you know that immigrants that come into our country are 4 times more likely to succeed and become self-made millionaires than native-born Americans? Why is that? Because they come with the expectation of coming to America and succeeding. Let me tell you a story. I have traveled the world, and I've lived in Germany for 3 years. I lived in Taiwan for 2 years, and I learned to speak Chinese and serve those people. Ni hao ma. Let me tell you something. After those time periods and the times that I've traveled to do speaking engagements and so forth, there is a special feeling when I come back to America, a sense of gratitude of landing on the tarmac and just being thankful to have been privileged to be raised in America. I recognize the fact that I was truly blessed. And it makes sense to me why there are so many people trying to come across the southern border of America. Thousands and tens of thousands of people that, even with all the negative publicity around capitalism that's going on today in this political environment, there are people still trying to get across the border. Why would they do that if they didn't see a bright future? There is a bright future. In fact, when I lived in Taiwan, many Chinese people would ask me, they would say this in Chinese. They would basically say, "Is it true, TJ, that the streets in America are paved with gold?" Now, they knew that it didn't have anything to do with reality of really being paved with gold. What they were talking about was opportunity. And I would always say, absolutely, there's opportunity. You can be what you want to be. You can achieve what you want to achieve in America like no other country. Why? Because America is founded on some specific ideals. And just to name a few, the freedom of choice, the freedom of religion, the freedom of expression, the freedom of commerce, the freedom of thought, the freedom to be able to have an idea, have a dream, and then go out and make that dream a reality. Many other countries don't allow that much freedom and flexibility to do such things. And I've got stories and stories of people like Nido Qubein. Look him up. Nido Qubein, who as an immigrant, came to America with 50 cents in his pocket and then became a multi-millionaire and ended up becoming president of the Great Harvest Bread Company and being the president of a university. I'm telling you, his story is amazing, and I could share 1,000 other great stories of people that came to America with the expectation of succeeding. Right? There was no option to fail. And they knew that if they could come and if they could work hard and they could learn and they could develop themselves, that in time, they could create their own destiny. That's what America is all about. It's not about taking from some to share with all. It's about everybody contributing in this system, in this dream of creating your own destiny, of using your own talents and ideas to go become the fullest measure of your creation, right? And I'm just saying, in this country, with the freedoms that we have, you can become all that you're capable of becoming. I mean, just to give one example, look at Venezuela. 15 years ago, they were one of the most wealthy countries in the world. And look where they're at today, where people can't even get enough water. Why? Because the economic system has changed to socialism. And I could give you example after example after example. So I don't want to dwell too much on that. But what I do want to do is highlight the power of the free enterprise system of capitalism. You know, Jim Rohn taught me when I found that tape as a 15-year-old. I found that tape from Jim Rohn, who was Tony Robbins' first teacher, and Jim Rohn was my first teacher. On that tape, that cassette tape that I listened to, I put it in my Walkman, I put my headphones on, and I listened to it, and he said all kinds of things on that tape, like leaders are readers and so forth, and it was just an amazing tape that inspired me to go start my first business as a 16-year-old and sell it 2 years later. I'm telling you, to go create value in the marketplace and then get paid for that value. Well, this was one thing that came from Jim Rohn. He taught me that you don't make a fortune, you don't get paid based on demand. You don't demand money from other people. You don't demand change. You don't demand that someone else takes care of you. The way that you make a fortune in America is you go become somebody. The biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. You go take your ideas and your ingenuity and your energy and your blood, sweat, and tears, and you pour it into a vision, and in time you plant those seeds, and eventually you get a fruition. He said that you don't get rich by demand, you get rich by providing value to other people. And it would be around that same time as a teenager that I would hear Zig Ziglar say that if you help enough other people get what they want, you will get what you want. Isn't that beautiful? And I recognize that there are bad apples out there. But let me remind you that where there's bad apples, there's 1,000 good business owners trying to do their communities right, trying to do their people, their employees right. I'm telling you, there are great companies that do that, and they employ most of America. I mean, the economic system and the taxes that are received in America are largely based on small enterprise, small businesses. And so to try to change that, I think can be a dangerous course. And I think we've got to be careful. Why? Because the capitalistic system provides everybody the opportunity, the freedom to become all that they're capable of becoming. And so when I was a teenager, I had a teacher I had shared a goal with that I was one day going to be a motivational speaker and a management consultant. I told him that in private. Well, then one day, Charles Sams, my graphic arts teacher, what a great man he is. He's still alive and still doing great and has great energy. What a good man. He helped nudge me forward when I was a senior in high school. And he said, TJ, if you believe in this vision so much, why don't you go to the VICA conference or something and do a state competition around speaking? And so that's what I did. I signed up. At first I said no, but then he said, no. If you're going to talk it, you got to go do it. And so I signed up for this competition. And I put together, the subject for the competition that I spoke on was called The Free Enterprise System and the Entrepreneur. This is the actual speech I gave, and I want to read it to you and see if it makes sense, the power of capitalism. So let me jump right in as I read this. Picture this in your mind. It's the Super Bowl. You're in the fourth quarter with 47 seconds left in the game. It's third down, you're on the 10-yard line, and the game is tied. The ball has been hiked to you, and all you have to do is somehow get a touchdown. What are you going to do? Pass the ball? Kick it for an extra point? Run the ball yourself? Or hand it off? It's a decision you have to make. I know what you're probably thinking. What in the world does football have to do with the free enterprise system or capitalism? It's very simple. Between Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations in 1776 and David Stockholm's commentary on supply-side economics within the last few years, there have been thousands of books published about our United States economic system, enough to fill a gymnasium. But the free enterprise system, or capitalism, isn't so hard to understand. Let me show you. Just as in football, the United States of America's economic system has referees. They are government agencies that oversee business and set policy. These referees make the ground rules to the game and make sure that everyone follows them, so everyone is playing on a level field. Now, let me just add here, this is one part I'll add. Jack Welch, in his book Winning, said this, quote, "Government makes no money of its own. Government is the support of the economy. It's not the engine itself." Understand that distinction. Government is the support of the players in the economy, not the engine itself. So what is the engine? Let me continue. Then we have coaches. They are the officers of the corporations. They assign work to people and delegate what plan to run and how to run it. Then we have the teams out on the field. They are like the teams within the corporation. They are the employees, the people actually doing the work, making the products, and outperforming the competition. But the most important factor, the engine of the free enterprise system and capitalism, whether we're talking about football or capitalism, is the effort the individual makes to succeed. It's the individual who takes the risk to be a winner or a loser, who works for success and seeks to avoid failure. Without the individual entrepreneur who creates the jobs and the opportunities for others, the free enterprise system simply wouldn't work. This is going to take me back a few years, but the Bell Telephone Company didn't come knocking at the door of Alexander Graham Bell asking him to invent a telephone for them to sell. Instead, Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone, and from it grew a great corporation that bore his name for many years. What about the example of Ray Kroc, the founder of McDonald's? He didn't invent the hamburger. What he had were two new ideas, and he, unlike the McDonald's brothers, had a vision and acted on it. Number one, to make good hamburgers faster was his first idea. Number two, his second idea was to create franchises of the company so that others could reap the profits and benefits while making McDonald's grow as a company. This was all built from capitalism. And think of the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, I haven't looked up the number in doing this podcast, maybe 1 million people worldwide work for McDonald's or more, right? Think about the lives that are being impacted by that company. What about Apple Computers? Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak took an idea and ran with it. And you know what? They changed the world. And look at how many lives have been impacted for the better, whether it is for the employees or the consumers who love Apple products. The same is true with football. Originally, players invented the game, not the coaches and the referees, not the government. Individuals created the corporations and organized them. In the free enterprise system, the individual opens the floodgates for future opportunities. Of course, the people I just mentioned and many others I could name had vision, dreams, ideas, and then they had the determination to put them to work. That's my mission for you. As I've been coaching for over 20 years, it's for you to become self-reliant. Now let me just continue. I'm getting off track here. And the second way in which the free enterprise system is like a football game is that the individual not only has the dream, he also has to be able to compete with other people who have their own dreams that are playing on the field. Competition is a battle against other individuals and businesses for consumer acceptance, for ideas. It's a battle. Sales and profits are the yard lines that measure marketplace acceptance. The free enterprise system requires that individuals and businesses continually adjust their strategies, their product offerings, service standards, operating procedures, etc. Otherwise, the competitors will win sales and profits. Just like in the football game, it wouldn't be efficient to run the same play over and over. Hence, where there is competition, there is risk and reward. And it's in that chase, it's in that risk and reward to become all that you're capable of becoming where you're really able to become the measure of your creation. And it all starts by having freedom to risk, freedom to compete. Let me get back to the speech. In his book, Contemporary Business, Louis E. Boone says, "The individual is at the heart of the American economic system. Without the willingness to take the risk, there are no successful businesses, and the free enterprise system couldn't exist." It's only in the United States of America that an 8th grade dropout could become a successful entrepreneur and one of the world's richest individuals. He was a risk taker in the truest sense of the word, always striving to upgrade what became a vast financial network of 45 firms and 15,000 employees. John D. MacArthur was one of the greatest entrepreneurs to ever live. People in the 1800s were encouraged to take risks and become entrepreneurs. He, like Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, Morgan, Carnegie. Carnegie was such a great server of the people. I mean, think of the libraries and the way he donated his money to many great causes. They became wealthy because of their willingness to take business risks. Just like in the game of football, the individual who is willing to think big, take some risks, to hit a little harder, to run faster, to run a new play, to be different, to never settle, has a better chance to succeed. It's about having a vision. Thanks to the freedom of economic choice that Americans enjoy, the individual entrepreneur is able to do anything he or she wishes, as long as one follows the ground rules, right? How lucky we are to live in America. If we didn't have the freedom of choice, there would be no need for the entrepreneur. There would be no need for ingenuity and creativity to push the outer edges of what's possible. Things like going to the moon or going to Mars, right? Or Elon Musk that had success and many big failures to only come back and succeed. And to think about his rocket boosters that are able to take a rocket out to space, and then those boosters, self-controlled, are able to land back on those landing pads to be reused a second time. This in itself is what the free enterprise system is all about: ingenuity and ideas. All right, let me get back to the speech. If we didn't have the freedom of choice, there would be no need for the entrepreneur. There would be no need for ingenuity and ambition. Then again, if we didn't have the entrepreneur, we wouldn't have the economic freedom, which makes our lives so rich with possibilities and dreams. You and I, as individuals, can determine whether our lives will be a success or not. It's not the government or the corporations that make the free enterprise system work. Did you get the message? It's you. It's you. The free enterprise system is alive and thriving because of individuals who follow dreams, act on ideas, take risks, and decide to make a difference. So what are you gonna do with your life? Are you gonna pass the ball off to someone else, or are you gonna run it yourself? It's your choice. Take your talents and your gifts and buy into a vision for your life. Build and create something meaningful. Create a legacy. Create your own destiny while lifting others. You know what? Be a force for good and unleash your greatness within.